Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. Today we are diving into the book, The Anatomy of Loneliness. Now, I thought this was a pertinent topic with holidays on the rise, and this is the time where people tend to feel loneliness the most. Now, this book is something that I read a year or two ago, and it really had a profound impact on me because I see isolation in the world today, and it's so abundant. And I was curious, what is it that's leading this epidemic of loneliness? And this book does a really good job painting a picture of, as Teal Swan, who wrote the book, phrases it, the three pillars of loneliness, which is separation, shame, and fear. So we're going to dive into these concepts and how it pertains to Ashla, and hopefully shed some light on how to break out of isolation and loneliness and get out of your head and into your life. My name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates, and this is the new Ashla Podcast. So, The Anatomy of Loneliness. Now, I was curious what your thoughts were going to be on this book, Justin. It is a different type of book. When it comes to Teal Swan's work, she's a lot more into the spiritual scene and understanding the energies at play.
I have to be honest with you. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be a snoozer. I'm going to be like flicking myself in the third eye, trying to stay awake, you know. But it wasn't like that because she really kind of speaks my language. You know what I mean? I mean, it's she comes at it. I interestingly enough, it's like it was almost like I was listening to a different dimensions version of our podcast where we really do that psycho-spiritual kind of blend when we talk about these topics. It was very much like that. So I was very relieved. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a book I can listen to. But she really hits the nail on the head. I mean, she talks about a lot of the stuff that we touch on all the time. But she comes at it from a very unique perspective, which was refreshing.
I mean, it's like she comes at loneliness isn't about being alone.
Right.
Loneliness is a sensation we go through where we could be surrounded by people but still feel lonely. It is this inauthentic presentation we give to life, which we talk about often, wearing social masks.
Yeah. Well, you know what it really reminded me of as I started getting into it more? It reminded me of the show we did, Heaven is Connection, Hell is Disconnection. It was really ringing on a lot of those. And I wish I'd have listened to this book before we did that show because I would have been able to probably expand a little better or more than we did. But it was really, really kind of hitting that same vibe of that show that we did. Yeah. And talking about a lot of the same stuff. And, the fact that loneliness is not an absence of people. Lots of people are lonely out there and they have lots of people around them. It's an absence of connection.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with people being in proximity of you or even trying to fawn over you or show you attention. The connection is busted. And, of course, loneliness, as we talk about it, it really leads into some really, really bad territory that we'll get into today. But like I said, it's not a lack of bodies around us. It's the lack of that, not just that connection, but that feeling of belonging.
It's like this disconnect we have from our relationships. Mm-hmm. It's, again, you could be surrounded by people. It's this inability to get, whether it's reciprocity or being able to express ourselves. I mean, and so many people suffer from this. I see this with so many, especially when it comes to a lot of men being stoic and trying to sort of shove their emotions down and carry the weight of the family on their back. Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
Take it.
I resemble that remark a little bit.
A little bit. You got the vulnerability part down, though.
I do.
To enough of a degree.
My daughters, man. My daughters did that to me. My daughters and my wife. I say this often, and they helped change me and heal me in ways that I can't even describe. But vulnerability, that kind of surrender to that part of me, oh man, that's all them. All I had to do was just let them. You know what I mean? Just let it happen. So, but I am living proof that you can be hella stoic and hella awesome at the same time.
Damn straight.
I'm sure the ghost behind me is she hiding in the show? Yep, she's hiding back there. She's probably rolling her eyes at me right now.
Probably.
She can't participate today because she has no voice because she's sick. Even though she says she's not sick, but she has no voice. And she napped for like
that's stoicism.
So, yeah, she's very stoic. But anyways, And from in our perspective, the Ashla perspective, we share this idea, this understanding. We also believe that there was a fundamental truth in what she's saying, Teal Swan is saying, is that this isn't a lack of physical connection. This is a lack of, because we are threads of the same light. We are threads of the same web of connection, and we are just simply disconnected. And maybe we're never disconnected, as I said before in the other show. But that connection is definitely in trouble. It's definitely harmed or hurt.
Yeah.
Right? So
it makes me think of that saying that you can only meet someone as deeply as they've met themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Where it's just like we have all these relationships that are just, they can be so surface level, but it's like when we can start opening up and show our true selves, it can create true, genuine connection. It can help create a situation where we can help build each other up instead of just, oh, he's doing fine.
Yeah.
He's doing fine.
Yeah. And I kind of looked at the three pillars that she uses: separation, shame, and fear. I kind of tried to connect them to how I speak and how I teach the Ashla way. And, separation would be disconnection from the light, from the web.
Yeah.
Shame will be that wound of unworthiness. And fear in this context really is that really guarded heart, right? It's this, you're just not letting anybody near you in that deeper spiritual way. And that, again, she really describes this as a spiritual problem, a spiritual and emotional problem. And that separates from the three things that she talks about: separation, shame, and fear. So, but as I always say to you, Michael, and as I've always taught you, none of these things are enemies. None of these things are the opposition. They are teachers. They are teachers.
Yeah.
These are things that we forgot. I'm not so sure we're born wounded. I know we can get someone on here that will argue with me for 6 hours about how we are from many past lives, but it really feels like these are behaviors, these are shadows that come up after we forgot our true selves.
Yeah, which she elaborates a lot on in the book.
She does.
Because,
she really does.
and it's, I love how she phrases things like parts work.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of these different symptoms, which we'll dive into parts work as we go through this, because she sort of elaborates on it throughout the book, is it's like this divide that happens within us. We have our protector parts and these vulnerable parts that just, they don't see eye to eye. They have different needs. And without that communication and awareness of these two parts, it's this constant turmoil we're in internally.
Well, and she kind of talks about how people will just encourage you. Well, just go surround yourself with people. Go hang out at parties. Go do this, which is not a good solution. Not for everyone. Not if these things are really deeply rooted, right? Because it's not solved by simply surrounding yourselves with people. I've been in crowded rooms and still felt lonely. People feel lonely in a marriage or within a big family. So this isn't an easy thing to solve with just be around more people, because that's just kind of exasperates the problem for many anyway. Because it's not a condition of the environment. It's a condition of your heart. And those things that you need to face and those things that need to be healed.
Often we are the biggest obstacle in our own ways. I mean, we see nowadays, as we talk about isolation being so rampant in society, I mean, look at the rise of social anxiety. I don't know what the numbers are, but I'd bet you they're extremely high when it comes to how many people suffer from social anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it ties down to this whole feeling of shame or the fear.
Well, she also talks about, and I love the way she talks about things in that kind of the spiritual basis, because she talks about loneliness begins when our souls feel severed from our origin points. And for us, we call that the light. We call that creation. We call that source. But that thing that animates all things, that energy, that force. And it's not a literal separation, because no one can be removed from the source. Nobody can be removed from the creator that gave us life. But again, it's a forgetting. It's a forgetting. And she really kind of talks about that a lot. But this is kind of what this disconnection or separation sounds like. It sounds like I don't belong anywhere, or I'm always on my own, or I'm on my own. I got to do it myself. No one understands me type things.
And a lot of that is, like you said, it's conditioning that's happened throughout our lives. Certain circumstances, events, people in our lives disappoint, betray, reject, or abandon us. And we end up cultivating this armor that we try to present to the world and present to protect ourselves. If I don't rely on anyone, then I don't have to worry about ever being hurt again, is the mentality.
Oh, I figured that would be... Heather looked up your question, and it says, approximately a little over 7% of adults in the U.S. experience social anxiety disorder.
Ah, fascinating.
But that's like 15 million people, by the way, though. I mean, 7%
Yeah.
of a large population is a lot. I figured that percentage would be higher because I always feel like we all know people. We all know several people that are like that.
Yeah, I know more people than not, but that is fascinating. Thank you for looking that up, Heather.
And it says in a lifetime, estimated 12.1% of adults will find themselves being socially anxious at one point or the other.
Which makes sense when it comes to the peaks and valleys of going through emotional turmoil. I mean, we all go through situations in our life. I know for me, it's like I was in that downward slope and I love socializing. I'm still coming out of that slope.
Well, and going back to the Connection is Heaven show, you know, we have to try to remember that we are living threads of this tapestry of consciousness. And if we purposely move through this world as if we are exiles instead of participants, then creation becomes a very horrible place to be sitting in, you know? And the real tragedy is not that we are disconnected, but we believe that we're disconnected because we're never totally, completely, truly disconnected. We just believe we are.
I think it ties into one of my favorite axioms. Your perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the way we perceive the world around us and who we are in that world.
Yeah.
Often, most of our inadequacies are just moments in our life where we fell short, but now we label our whole life as that.
Yeah. Well, probably because you heard a lot of that when you're growing up.
Yeah.
You know, nothing you ever did was good enough, even if you gave your best. And that's all I ever ask from people. On this show, it's all I ever ask of people. When I teach people, it's all I ever ask of you. Just give me your best.
Yeah.
But I've only got 20%. All right, man. I'll spot you the 80% today. It's all good.
Yeah.
Just do your best, you know. But a lot of us don't hear that a lot, or it you know, pride in us from others come at really, really weird times instead of those little times. You know, like you're a little leaguer, you strike out. You have a bad game, you strike out 3 times. Hey, man, you did your best. My grandfather was really good about that. He was always very encouraging. But you know, he was one of a sea of 100 that, you know, that was the exception, not the rule.
Right.
So, and I feel like we're probably all of us are like that, you know, in one way or the other.
Well, I think it's one of those like unspoken things. I mean, one of the things I came to realize as I started this healing journey is I always projected on the world that everyone was perfect. Not that I thought they were perfect, but I thought everybody was way up here when it came to a lot of these things. Yeah. And I was down here trying to work my way up to being a productive member of society. And it took this flip of realizing that most of us struggle with the same challenges, anxiety, depression, these different bouts in our life, managing high stress situations. I mean,
Yeah.
That's why one of my favorite things to say to my clients is when they're going through a hard time and they're struggling, maybe they're dealing with a few vices, or they're just like, they're so emotional. And it's like, look, you look at a lot of the great people in the world. Yeah, you see their accomplishments, but what you don't see is them in the trenches too. Mm-hmm. Because when they were in the trenches, they were suffering too. And they were going through their own waves.
Mm-hmm. So where does that shame come from? Let's talk about that second pillar, that pillar of shame. Where does that, you know, why does she make that one of the pillars? Is it that important?
I think shame is one of the biggest driving forces in most people's life. Even hyper successful people are always trying to compensate the shame they feel inside. Whether it's the small areas where they've messed up in life, it's their shortcomings. People try so hard to have that air of perfection. And in turn, there's this inner turmoil that's never addressed. And shame drives so much action.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes really hard and fast, especially when you're a kid. Is where it usually starts. And it's not even malicious. A lot of times it could just be, or you could just misunderstand how people are reacting to your expression or your emotions, or, you know, your authenticity, or they could, you know, you could have a jokester in your family who is just joking with you. You know, it kind of sounds like ridicule, but maybe they're just joking or being sarcastic. But you know, we talk about how our subconscious doesn't have a sense of humor. It doesn't know anything. And especially when we're really impressionable, when everything is growing within us, that stuff just gets kind of planted, right? So
Yep.
And of course,
I
I
dealt with
mean,
that a lot growing up. I never knew what sarcasm was until I was 18, and my dad was a sarcastic mother trucker. And it's like, man, I look back at all the times it was like all these little criticisms, all these little statements, and
right.
I took it so personally.
Well, if you're not taught the difference, how do you know? But even if you know the difference, that stuff starts to add up over time, whether you're a kid or an adult. But
But we st-
you get to a point where your heart really draws a conclusion: is what the problem must be me. I must be the problem.
yeah,
I'm at the center of all this everywhere I go. I must be the problem, which is, of course, not true in this regard. Sometimes we
yeah.
are the worst things in our life sometimes, and we are our worst enemies, and we lie to ourselves. And sometimes we are the kind of negative juju that goes from place to place. But in this case, we're not. It's just it's not
Well, I
true.
think often, I mean, this ties into that parts work, right? Where we have a part of ourselves. It's easier that I take accountability for everything going wrong around me. That way, I don't have to deal with confrontation. That way, I don't have to deal with the fallout of these connections. It's this hidden voice inside of us that just tells us we're wrong. We don't have to worry about the repercussions of being right.
Right. And you're right. This one is probably the most devastating pillar of loneliness here. Because it goes really deep. It goes right to the heart, right?
Yeah.
Your heart believes that it's unlovable, or that it's invisible, or even worse, somehow never enough. So you draw these conclusions that the problem must be me, or that love is something that others get around me and they get it from me, but I have to earn it. Which, of course, you can't earn love. You
Yeah.
can't
Well, what's
ever
crazy is I
earn
don't
it.
think many people even think about it. They just
Well, no.
assume that's how the world works. That is just how they
Yes.
flow through life.
Well, this is why we always say no shame. Don't have any shame. Ignorance yet knowledge is a line of our code, is it not? It's important to have ignorance if you seek knowledge. It's okay to be ignorant. We are all ignorant in one thing or the other, or a million things, right? But it's how you carry that. Does that ignorance make you more curious? Does that ignorance make you more student-like forever and ever? Does it keep you as the perpetual learner for the rest of your days? A true master is a perpetual learner, but there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. That is a human condition,
Well, I think
especially.
it's important we elaborate on this because this is so true for so many. I know
Well, it
when we
is.
first met, I suffered with this. It was this constant, I need to know everything because if I don't, I'm not safe. If I don't know everything, then I am wrong.
So kind of in your words, elaborate on the code we use. That first line: ignorance yet knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to ignorant yet knowledge, it's being able to be humble enough to accept opposing perspectives. And it doesn't mean you have to accept them as reality, but the more we can stop being so rigid in our attachment to our understanding, so rigid in our attachment to being right, the more we can open ourselves up to truth, because truth is where reality is. And we all live in different realities. But the more we can take different perspectives, it's one of the greatest building blocks for becoming whole as a person.
Yes. Ashla was never built. The philosophy of Ashla was never built to be a healing modality. But because it aligns with the literal truth of the universe, it aligns with healing, right? And the very first code that you learn under our tutelage is the unity code, or we call it the mind code, or the code of the student: emotion yet peace. Well, that's really important for healing, isn't it? Ignorance yet knowledge. It's fit right in here. Passion yet serenity. Chaos yet harmony. Death yet the force. So these are all very important ways to shift your ideal of being traumatized and hurt to start the healing journey. Because, as you said, and you explained it so very well, so I won't talk too much about it, but where there's light, there is shadow. That is a law of the universe. Period. Go outside when the sun's out. Tell me it doesn't cast a shadow. If it doesn't, you might be a vampire, but that's for a different show. I don't know. Can vampires cast shadows? I don't think they can. It's like looking in the mirror, right? Type thing.
Well,
But
this is one I think we also should jump on because I know me, I've heard this phrase even before jumping into this training. And I never quite understood it. It's like I don't have a shadow.
yeah, of course.
I am a good person.
So, so every light casts a shadow, literally and figuratively, because the light truth shines on everything, and it brings us to bear, to face with the things that we don't want to see. Now, when we talk about literal shadows, they're there all the time. You never get rid of them, right? Well, that's because they are a part of you. It's just the way it is. These emotional shadows and these spiritual shadows and these, shadows of the mind and all these things that we talk about, those are part of you too. But to understand this line, ignorance yet not knowledge, I want you to imagine that ignorance is simply the shadow cast by a light of potential, right? It's not sin, it's not shame, but it's a reminder of what exists in this universe and all parts of ourselves, whether we want to see them or not. And it reminds us how far we have yet to walk on our path, right? And we believe that every being is born into this kind of quiet fog, if you will. And every step we take toward awareness is an act of sacred courage. It's to live by this line of the code is to remember that knowledge is a lantern that we must light for ourselves if we are to carry it forward forever. Others can light our lantern, but we must learn to sustain that light. We must learn to always seek knowledge. And we don't condemn, and we're not condemned by ignorance, at least not innocent ignorance. We are by willful ignorance, which is a whole nother thing, right? Which is really the refusal to learn. That's what we're really condemned by, but not by ignorance, especially innocent ignorance.
Or the unwillingness to reflect. I know that was,
That too.
for me, one of the biggest things is being unwilling to understand the mechanisms that drove me.
Yeah.
Again, I thought I'm going to say perfect, but I didn't think I was perfect. But it's like the way I showed up, the way I was always there for everybody in my life, the way I would sacrifice. And I thought it was the most noble of deeds. And you start to shine that light and you start to see the motives behind it, how that is how I knew how to get validation and love. That's something I didn't know how to give myself.
For the luminary, which is what we are, perfection is never, even in our peripheries at all. We don't care. We do not care about perfection. And for those of you who never aspire to be a luminary or a walker of light in our path, you should never look for perfection either. Presence over perfection. Presence must be the goal. And in presence, you find knowledge over ignorance. In presence, you find the understandings the awareness, the understandings, the clarity. Growth is our goal, right? For luminary growth. Now, not just our growth, but others too. We are sculptors of the self. We shape every part of ourself stone by stone, mistake by mistake, so that we can have the clearest reflection of ourselves seen in everything we do. So every error, every mistake, every misstep, every humbling, embarrassing, annoying moment is literally just a chisel stroke of growth. We're just banging away no matter what's happening, right? So to acknowledge ignorance is the very beginnings of that unfolding into wisdom. You must have ignorance if you are to find wisdom, period. So it's not anything to run from or hide from. The longer you hide from it, the harder it gets. And for all of us, probably, we waited a long time before we started to. But again, as I say many times before and forever and ever, this is not a race. This is not a race. Your unfolding must be done in its own time. But this is ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. Vitally important for human beings. All of us, and we're all human beings. It's really important for us to understand. Ignorance is not, there's not something wrong with you. It is, you are in prime position to find wisdom now. Right? So
Well, I remember when I started my training, how it was just like, I had to go through it with the lens of a child, like a kid in a candy shop. I had to just pretend everything I knew wasn't true and that I was open to receiving and understanding whatever I could, or at least that I was willing to challenge whatever beliefs I once held.
Yes. And the second code, we have three codes that we teach and that we follow. The second one is the direction code or the body code, right? And this is a reworking of the code that says Jedi are guardians of peace and justice. We practice it as we are, right? And one of the lines of that code is we seek to improve ourselves through knowledge and training. In other words, we practice and practice and practice until we get it right. And then once we get it right, we remember that we won't always get it right, even if we can get it right sometimes. And this goes back to what you said about being reflective. The lesson in this line of the code, we seek to improve ourselves through knowledge and training, is you must have a disciplined and contemplative mind. And it must be looking for and steeped in the pursuit of knowledge to find wisdom. That's how you find that path to enlightenment, which of course will look different for everyone else. But in our tradition, this is the harmony of thought and our motives and our action, right? So we have to have an open yet disciplined mind and body and spirit, because these open the very heavy doors to these things. And the doors are heavy sometimes. But you got to have discipline, and you must be contemplative. It's mandatory. It is mandatory. So, but there's nothing wrong with you if you have ignorance. And that's what we're talking about here, to get us back there. You're not broken. You're not undeserving or anything. You're just ignorant at the moment, and you will learn if you seek.
Well, I think one of the misconstrued thoughts about healing out there is they talk about it like it's this magical thing that you heal and you get all better. And it's like, man, it is the most excruciating work I have ever done.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. So, some synchronicity, a lot of synchronicity the last few weeks on the show here. As they'll hear on the show that drops tomorrow, the 18th. There was a lot of synchronicity in that show that we did with Shannon and Marissa. But I was working on parts of the teachings today, and I was working on alchemy of the night. And part of that is one of the big, powerful tools we use, like many spiritual traditions and even mind traditions. I don't know what we call them. Analytical. Yeah. Is affirmations and visualizations. Very powerful tools. But I had to make sure that I put in there, look, before I get any further into this blah, 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 this is not a magic pill. There are no magic pills. You still must bleed and sweat and cry through this, because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
That's what it takes for all of us. And even after you've cried and you haven't cried for 10 years, guess what? You'll hear a song on the radio and you'll cry again. And it's okay. It's okay.
Well, man, I tell you what, one of the hardest parts of the healing journey is just accessing those emotions we've buried so deep down.
Yeah.
I know, and that sort of ties into shame right there. I know for me, it's like anger and disgust were emotions that I have struggled to access my whole life because they never felt safe. Yeah. Those were the parts I had tucked away because I had protector parts saying, it's much easier to just let things go. It's much easier to just roll with the punches.
Yeah. Yeah, and that segues, you talk about protecting yourself, the guarded heart, or fear. She calls it fear. I call it the guarded heart. When the pain is at such a point where it teaches us to protect ourselves from being seen, just in case love hurts, because it does sometimes, right? And this is a huge paradox. We long to be known, we long to be seen, yet we do what?
We hide.
We hide. We yearn and long for closeness, yet we retreat. And for these people, these are walls built not out of arrogance, like I'm better than everybody else. I don't want them in here. I don't want them infecting me. But they're built out of survival, aren't they? Right? Because
very much so.
Because to your nervous system, love is what? It's dangerous. It's a risk. Connection and closeness is a risk. It's dangerous. We can't risk it.
It feels so unsafe.
Yes, and connection, one of the two most powerful forces in the universe for humans. Connection becomes a battlefield instead of that circle of trust or that circle of security. Because your body does what, Michael? It remembers everything, right?
It's one of the things I've been learning a lot on my journey recently. Is it's just like whenever I get these triggers, whenever something stresses me out, it's like I got to step back and be like, what memory is happening in my body right now?
Yeah, because the body remembers past betrayals and abandonments and humiliations, and it ruminates and plays it over and over again. But it doesn't just play out in your mind. You don't just feel it in your heart. You start to feel it in your body. You start to do this, man. You start to flinch sometimes. And that's no bueno.
No, and it's hard to break that cycle. I look at the comfort zone as this like shell that slowly shrinks around us the more we allow it to control us.
Yeah.
And it gets so hard to break free.
That show that you led that we did on the comfort zone was a really good one. I suggest you guys go check that one out. Even if you have to pause this one to go check that one out, but make sure you come back. Yeah, go check that one out, come back. But you really hit the nail on the head with that during that show, where you just lock yourself in a cage. And it's not a nice, roomy jail cell. It's one that literally encases you. And what this looks like, where you're just keeping all the conversations that you might have with people really shallow and really kind of surface level, because you don't want to be vulnerable. You tend to pick people who are emotionally unavailable, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's crazy when we look at attachment styles, the avoidant and the anxious, they both fear the same thing. They just show it in different ways.
What about people who end the relationships really early? So, and another one I'll bring up to you is something I see a lot, is you have that one person who is like everybody's advisor, everybody's spiritual guru, but they don't let anybody support them at all. One little tiny bit.
Yeah, that man, I tell you what, I fell into that category for the longest time. It was one of those, and even now, as I'm working through my trauma, I keep finding myself trying to just give people the answers. Yeah, I don't talk about my problems. And I finally had a buddy reach out 2 weeks ago. I was like, hey, man, like, you've been really good at supporting me. Just know you can come to me with crap, too. And it just came out this overflow.
Good. I mean, it probably didn't feel good for him. Probably was really horrifying, but good for him. Oh, good for him.
Definitely with all the demons I had stacked up right there. No.
Well, good for him, though. I mean, that's tough to do, especially if you're a tough guy. You know what I mean? The old tough guy.
No, exactly.
But it's important for us to remember that when we're dealing with the guarded heart or the fear pillar, we have to remember that behind every wall, there's a doorway. We're never, ever trapped. We're never stuck. We don't have to be that way. And that guard that's there, watching over you, is not there to imprison you, but to protect the most tender parts of you until you feel safe enough to emerge. So, again, we always say, none of this is bad. These are opportunities. These can be teachers. But the three of these form that anatomy of loneliness. And these are three good ones. She picked three really good ones for that.
When it really holds it together, because when we have the separation, when we have the shame, when we have the fear, it's just this culminating mess that takes hold of us. And it's such a struggle to break free from. Again, isolation is rampant everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the only way we can break out of that isolation is learning to work with these things inside of ourselves. Yeah. To learn to not fight them, not repress them, but to accept them and act anyway.
Yeah. My intention for this episode is a pretty simple one. I want us all to understand where loneliness comes from, how it forms in the body, how it presents in the mind and the spirit, and how we can begin that sacred return to connection and love and belonging. What is your intention for the show today?
For me, it's to help people sort of reflect on where they're at in life. Again, isolation is probably one of the biggest things I'm most passionate about, because I've been there, and it is a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
But connection is everywhere if we choose to look for it. I always refer to this as the handshake. Everyone wants to have that handshake. They're just waiting for someone to reach out and do it.
Right.
And so I want to spread that awareness and help inspire people to take more action in their lives, to getting out of their shells, getting out of their heads, and getting into their lives.
So just as a side note, the notes over the next few notes, they break down and they dive deeper into these things. Do you think that we've touched upon these, or do we need to touch upon these some more?
That's what I was just reading. I'm like, man.
So we've kind of dove into these three separations. I guess we can go one at a time to see if there's anything we missed. Starting with separation. I mean, because we can talk about these for hours and hours, each of them.
We could have done a whole episode per pillar.
Right. So was there anything that we kind of missed on pillar one, separation?
I think when it comes to separation, it's not just a separation from others. It's a separation from ourselves, which is something that it's not something we notice until we gain the awareness.
Right.
When we end up looking at ourselves truly on what parts of ourselves we're disconnected from, whether that's joy, whether that's anger, whether that's rest. We have needs as people. And when it comes to emotions especially, it's a compass that's supposed to guide us. And the conditioning we go through life slowly starts to impede on these emotions, and we start to lock them away where we can't hear the messages they're trying to tell us.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, this feels even worse than separating from ourselves. Because to me, that means when I hear that, it means to be fragmented, which it does mean that in some ways. But really, this is more of a separation from a disconnect from our authenticity. Think about the child who becomes the caretaker obsessively, right? Think about the kid that goes silent, who maybe was an oversharer, or maybe an overtalker, or was just always really excited about sharing everything. And now all of a sudden they're not talking. They're silent. They've hidden away, separated from that authentic part of themselves. Or that more, let's call them more curious child, becomes super compliant to a fault almost, right? This loss of authenticity before they've even gotten a chance to really learn who they are. And I'll say this is where it does fracture. In an act of survival, they do fracture. And then a masked, presentable, quote unquote, presentable version is created. That performance starts for many, many years, sometimes for people's lifetimes, because they develop that mask or that costume that seems that they believe is more lovable.
Well, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when we start to separate like that, which we're all guilty of it to some degree or another, that is just how upbringing goes. It's not to blame our parents, but it is to understand that we tried to fit a mold.
There is
we tried to.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
We tried to fill the gaps.
It just reminded me of a song that I really like by Five Finger Death Punch. It's called "Welcome to the Circus." Have you ever heard the song?
I'm sure I have.
Well, after this show, listen to the song. Go to your Spotify and listen to "Welcome to the Circus," right? And click on the little microphone tab and read the lyrics, and you'll be like, that's exactly what he was talking about. That's why he was like, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the performance. And you know, you just said that we all kind of perform, and we do. But it just reminded me of that show or that song. As soon as you start reading the lyrics, you're going to be like, that son of a gun. Uh-huh. Yeah. You guys look it up.
Check that out.
If you don't know the song. I love that song. I do. Sometimes I'll play it 3 or 4 times in a row, but yeah, we do fragment and we do self-abandon. And then we try to create this costume of perfectionism, this mask of perfectionism, which is impossible. By the way, when you're doing that, you look less perfect, because perfect is not the default state of human beings. None of us are perfect. It's literally in every scripture. It's literally in every ancient scroll and text, by every ancient story told around the fire, in the caves before fire. We're never meant to be perfect. And people go numb and they ignore their needs, which is pretty tragic. But again, not because you're weak, Michael, but because this was the only way to what?
To get love, to get your needs met,
to stay safe, to feel protected, and yeah. So,
but I think one other thing I want to add to the separation is this ties into all 3 pillars, but especially separation from the world.
Yeah.
Because when we start to have these shame-based identities, when we start to not feel adequate in the world, we start to separate from everything going on in the world. We start to separate from family activities. We start to separate from understanding what's going on in the world, trying new things, expanding our horizons. It's so detrimental to our being, right? Because we are creatures of expansion.
A couple of things come to mind: separation of the world. And this one could probably go separation from others too, a little bit, but I don't fit into this family, or I don't fit into this culture or society. That might not be a bad thing. You might be a healer. You might be the one that's there to shatter the illusion, right? But you kind of get this feeling that everybody else got the manual, the life manual, except for me. I must have been absent. You heard that phrase? I must have been absent when they were handing out this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
It really does feel like everybody else has all of their shit together except for you. And then you isolate from them because, well, they all know what they're doing. They all have it together. And no, we don't. No, we don't. Most of us are just faking it too. And this goes back to the half measure show. You know, faking it to stay safe is not a good long-term solution. Just trust me when I say that. And this feeling is very common, even for us, even for the Luminari, even for the wisest sage that ever walked the path of light, right?
Oh.
That gifted child, the intuitive one, the sensitive one. All those people were misunderstood or labeled as my least favorite phrase of all modern times, being too much. You're just being so extra, right?
Yeah.
or too emotional or too different, if there is such a thing. If there even is such a thing as being too different. My kids were all goofy, but I never thought they were too different, and I actually celebrated that because guess what? They got that crap from me. So,
Yeah.
and a little bit from her, but I think all the goofy stuff came from me. Heather's got it together a little better in the goofy department than I do. So, and I was, and I always remind them, there's nothing wrong with you, man. You're just like me. And that makes me proud.
Hell yeah.
Because for a lot of people, and this is true for me, no matter what was going on in my life, something triggered that early awakening in me. And it made my life hell. And it still makes my life hell sometimes. But that was a blessing. Make no mistake. That was a blessing. And I'm grateful to have been lucky to have that insight so early on. Because I didn't have to start this work in my 50s. Not that there's anything wrong with it. But I just think it was better for me. So
Yeah.
you're not too broken. You're not too different. You're not too extra.
Well, it takes me to that like quote, like when you pray to God for strength, He's going to give you challenges, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of us prayed a lot when we were younger.
You came out the womb.
Yep. Hey man, this is pretty easy. Can you turn up the difficulty level? It's like playing a really hard video game. It's like playing Souls on super hard level. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
So
Then when we dive into, so let's see if we got anything else we can add to shame, which I think again we could do a whole episode on shame.
yeah,
But it's
we've probably done a lot of half episodes on shame. We talk about it all the time. Where you should never be shame. There is no shame here, and there is no blame.
there's this
no
book I read.
perfection,
I've read.
only presence, no perfection.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I bring it up often. There was a book I read, and it's one of my favorite books called Healing the Shame That Binds You. And it talks about how behind every negative emotion is shame.
Yeah.
And I truly believe there's truth to that. When there's anger, there's shame hiding underneath it. When there's jealousy, there's shame hiding underneath it.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. We're talking about shame. I was just recently talking with someone who, we were talking about shame a little bit, and they had said that, well, shame, a little bit of shame's good because then you find, accountability. No, that's guilt.
Yeah.
And sometimes we should be guilty. If we really did something wrong, we should take accountability. We should be responsible for our actions and our words and our thoughts. But guilt says, I did something wrong, and now I must atone, or now I must make amends, or whatever the case is. Shame will say, something is wrong with me.
Yes.
Those are the two big differences there. And no, you do not need shame to find guilt. Guilt comes in taking accountability. But also don't guilt yourself to death. That don't get ruminated into that, but those are two very different things, and that's something I wanted to point out. Because shame is really that wound that convinces us that we're somehow defective or stained or ruined or unlovable. And that leads us into the other pillar eventually. Too much shame leads us into that guarded heart or fear. So where we start to build walls with no windows.
Yeah.
And what do we build here? Bridges. We don't build walls, we build bridges with our stones. That's what we try to do anyway. So, and because if someone really saw me, seen the real me, they would run away from me. No, I'd grab you.
Ain't that the internalized belief, right?
Big old bear hug. That's what I would do. Ask Heather. I popped her back lots of times when she tried to get away from me.
Well, I think that's what a lot of people feel is that I really am seen for who I am, then I can't be loved because no one's going to appreciate who I am on the inside.
Yeah.
I'm going to be too much.
I won't love you any more or any less because of those conditions, because I love you unconditionally, right?
Yeah.
But if I had my choice, I would prefer you be yourself, if I had the preference, it doesn't change how much I love you. It doesn't change how I see you. It may change how I sit with you. It may change how I might be more careful and more mindful when I'm with you, but it doesn't make me love you any more or any less. I prefer you to be authentic as often as possible, but you're right. We get stuck in this rumination where it's like, no, that's not possible. Justin's a liar. He wouldn't love me if he knew exactly who I was. right?
You know,
But that's not true.
when I think,
There's a lot of comparison too, huh? When we talk
oh
about
my God, yes. Well, again, kind of like we were talking about how on the outside we think everyone's got it all figured out.
it. Right.
When in the end, it's the truth is we're all just trying to get by the same amount. Like we're fighting many of the same battles, even.
Little Timmy gets A's all the time. How come you only get C's? What a disgrace.
You
Right?
know,
Where we were constantly compared to others. And I don't think I ever had to go through that. I know Heather did. I know you probably did. I don't remember
Yep.
having to go through that, but I understand how detrimental that is.
well, it's like Jordan Peterson. I love how he phrases this, and it's like with kids, you got to set the bar at the lowest point possible. And again, I did go through it as a kid. My dad was always like, "You need to get straight A's. This is going to be important for your future." And I was barely getting by with C's. And that high bar was just like, I'm not going to do that. And I would end up just feeling so defeated because it was just so out of reach. You got to lower the bar to what's the next step? What's the next best thing? C pluses.
Yeah, yeah. I struggled in school the whole time, and it's not because I'm not smart. It's just because that environment wasn't built for someone like me. It's just the way it is. You know, I had to struggle and work twice as hard to get okay grades. You know, C's were a blessing because I just struggled to exist in that environment. It wasn't that I had bad teachers. It wasn't that I had bad parents in that regard. You know, they wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to do the best I could. They wanted me to, you know, because we all get sold on the bill of goods that paper is the most important thing ever, and it's actually not that important. I've never once. I just turned. Should I tell them how old I am? I just turned an old age recently.
35.
45. Yeah, I just turned 45. And only one time in my entire professional life did somebody ever ask me for any kind of diplomas or proof of schooling. And that was the Army, right? Nobody else, literally nobody else. And I've worked in positions that required college degrees, and no one's ever asked me. So, you know, it wasn't that important. But we're all sold that bill of goods, and we push and we encourage our kids and our siblings and our partners to do that, to go all out and do the best they can. But what we're talking about here is when the best you can really isn't true, because you're supposed to be up here, and if your best is down here, it's not good enough. That's what causes some of these problems. So, you know, but what I want to touch on, something we didn't touch on earlier, as far as the second pillar, shame, is what kind of mask does this force us to create? And we've talked about these masks in many of the different episodes.
Compensating masks is what I think of. I mean, it's just almost every mask we have is something to hide something we feel shame about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're always the people pleaser, it's because you don't want to be seen as useless.
Right, the helper. Yeah, the helper mask, right?
Or not enough.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're someone who gets angry all the time, it's because you don't want to be seen as weak.
Right, right. The one who doesn't need anyone mask.
You know?
I got this. I've had this. I've only had this by myself, so what do I need you for? I don't need you, which is untrue.
Which ties right back into the parts work. It's this protector part trying to protect the other side of it.
Right. Well, yeah, because someone has to be the strong one or the funny one or the quiet one, and these are all just kind of, and some people are authentically strong, and some people are authentically funny, and some people are authentically quiet. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when people who are putting mask over their authenticity. Because you don't always have to be the strong one. You don't always have to be funny. You shouldn't always be quiet, because sometimes you need to stand on business, right? Sometimes you got to stand up for yourself. And if you wear that mask, you can't. And you just deal with it. And, you know, it's not that you're some kind of liar if you're wearing masks and performing. It's that you're trying to survive. These are strategies that you created.
Yeah, 100%.
How does shame sustain loneliness? How does it fuel that fire?
Well, it's the fear of vulnerability. Mm-hmm. It's how we don't want to get close to other people because, again, if we're seen for who we truly are, then they're going to get away from us as fast as they can. It is this feeling that we are inadequate and that we don't want others to see that inadequacy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
Yeah. Ain't it the truth, though?
It is. It is. It is. And at the root, you know, it's the same kind of block that stops us from abundance. It's the same kind of block that stops us from connection and love. And even though connection and love are defaults, in this universe that we exist in, all the way from the very singular point of creation all the way till right now. And for as long as this universe exists, long after this moment, love and connection are defaults. They are defaults of this universe, but we fulfill this prophecy that we're not going to have those things, which is devastating. Why does vulnerability feel so damn dangerous, though?
I think it's because the few times we were vulnerable in our youth, relationships, we're met with rejection, betrayal, with abandonment. And I think that's really at the core. Again, our body gives us memories, not what's really going on. And it's the memories in our body being flared up, trying to not recreate the situation, but to prevent us from that same situation happening.
Yeah. And the reason that we say no shame and no blame here, and no shame, because it is a distortion of our sacred ethos of love, connection, truth, integrity, and even the sanctity of life. Because it's a belief that exists that I'm never worthy of any of these things, and that's not true. Because just because you're wounded and just because you have a trauma doesn't mean you can erase the truth. These things are true. Love, connection, truth, integrity, sanctity of life. These are facts. These are truths of the universe. Because none of us were created in error. We were all created with intention. And we have all these things in us from our moments of creation. So, and really it's a big violation of connection and love, because it convinces us that at the divine level, divine thread that binds all things somehow missed us. We're just somehow separated from that, which is crazy. Crazy talk. Crazy talk. You belong to me. Every single one of you belong to me, and I belong to you. We all belong to each other, especially when we're annoying each other.
Especially
that's
then.
How you really know. That's how you really know that we're connected down to the marrow.
When it's just like, man, when we're able to remove these barriers, this armor, when we're able to lay ourselves bare to those who are in our circle, it is the most liberating thing to be seen for who we truly are. Yeah. I had one of my closest friends open up about something in his past that he's never told anyone about, and he had been carrying that like a weight like a boulder on his back. And just being able to get that off his chest, I've been seeing the change in him. All of a sudden, he doesn't feel like he's the only person in the world with this problem, or that he's broken for having this situation in his life. And it's just when we're able to be vulnerable with those we trust, that we care about, we're able to be seen for our humanity, which there's nothing more powerful than that.
Yeah, yeah. Did we miss anything on the third pillar, fear? I just want to point out that I've always pointed out. Fear is no consort or ally to anyone, to any divinity, to any... You're mistaking caution for fear. Caution truly keeps us safe. Fear keeps us frozen, stagnant, unable to grow. So don't confuse caution with fear. Because the kind of fear we're talking about limits you, shrinks you, encapsulates you in a prison. And it really robs you of a good life.
It really does, though. I mean, one of the things with fear is it starts as a whisper. Mm-hmm. And then the voice, the more you listen to it, the more you hold back, the more you resist taking that action, doing that thing, the more the voice gets louder and louder until you think it's your own.
Yeah, yeah. And again, a lot of these things that we choose when we're stuck in this pillar, we stay overly busy all the time, or we don't allow relationships to go any deeper than that surface level, or we find ways to numb ourselves emotionally, like drugs and alcohol is a pretty easy one to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it perpetuates itself because, I mean, when we don't take the actions, when we know that fear is holding us back, it amplifies within us and makes us feel smaller and smaller. I've seen a few people who are just so trapped within the confines of their minds because they let this fear, this comfort, shrink in around them. And it would just take these little actions, because that's what it takes. It's not about the big leaps. If you're afraid of heights, don't go skydiving for the first time. Build yourself up.
Jump on a trampoline or something, yeah.
Yep.
Or go to Topgolf and realize that people fall off that thing and fall into the net. That'll cure that.
Yeah, because exposure, I mean, one of the things talked about in the book, exposure therapy. It can be beneficial, but you have to have both parts online for it.
Yeah. Don't have your friends shove you off a cliff into the ocean. You probably won't die, but you will never, ever trust them again.
Yep.
Yep, you're cured. What was those? I'm trying to remember what that. I think it was Maury Povich. Was it Maury that used to bring out, like, they would have people like scared of toilet paper or something, and they would just shower them with toilet paper, and the people would freak out and.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Or they bring out a big spider or a crocodile or something. Not a good way to help people through that, I don't think, anyway, because, I'm not fond of spiders. So if you blindfolded me and stuck a tarantula on my head, not only is that spider probably going to get hurt, but everybody in that room that I can get my hands on are going to feel that itch. Slight pressure, like, ooh, pop my finger.
Nice.
Or Geraldo. Maybe it was Geraldo. I don't remember, man. I'm really... Now people know I'm older than 45. I'm talking about people that, like, back in the day. But I used to watch those shows and go, man, they are creating psychopaths with doing this crap to people, man. Like, you're messing them up, seriously.
Yep.
Maybe if you're scared of spiders, like this is something I do. And I'm not hyper scared of spiders. Like, if I see one, I'll try to get it out of the house or something. But if it's like a deadly one, then I take more drastic measures. Sorry, it just is what it is. I got to be honest with you.
Yep.
But what I like to do when I go to zoos or aquariums and stuff, I'll go right up to the glass where the big spiders are. I'll go right up to the glass, dude, and touch the glass. And I'll make myself just imagine that it's like coming up and giving me little spider kisses on my fingertips. Because if you put that thing on me in real life, like outside the glass, I'm losing it. I'm not ready for that.
Yep.
So, that kind of stuff, I guess, could be good, but only under the supervision of a professional who will help you get through the steps. Don't go skydiving if you're scared of heights, man. Because you're going to create all kinds of different traumas after that, and probably a lot of PTSD or something.
Yeah, right.
Have nightmares about it. But it's funny. The one thing, I'll say I didn't take issue with, but to me, fear not only being a pillar here, which is why for me I kind of renamed it, a guardian of the heart, because to me fear seems like the foundation for all of these, right? It's not just a pillar. It's like the foundation that these pillars rest on. And I'll give you a few examples. So when fear says, I don't want to get hurt, that's a behavior of withdrawing or of avoiding closeness, or I can't trust anyone. That's really hyper independence. Or I'm too extra, or I'm too much, or on the other end, I'm not enough. That leads to people pleasing or silence. So my point is, like, all these behaviors, which are found in all three of these pillars, right? Not just one or two, they're found throughout here. To me, fear is more foundational, which is why when I teach the Ashla philosophy and the practice and path of Ashla, fear is included in all of those lessons, aren't they? In one way or the other.
Most definitely. I mean, I never thought about it as the foundational piece because I think each one intertwines with each other, but fear truly is at the heart of almost all of our trauma. When we look at what drives the nervous system, it's all fear-based.
Master Thompson always taught that fear was the first. He believed that fear was the first feeling and the first push when humans first met the divine. He believes it's fear, because fear propels us, right? But that's really slippery, and he even says as much in his teachings. We ought to do a series. I'll probably do a series on the Temple podcast when we get that going. We'll probably do a series on his teachings. Really good. But he talks about fear as almost being that, that picture where God's touching Adam in the fingertips,
yep.
Right? From his perspective, that first touch was fear, to motivate, to push, to get Adam moving. But fear is a very slippery thing. And I don't believe fear is a good fuel to use along your path, because it leads to a lot of negative consequences in the end. And we can get into that some other time, because it's a really deep ideal. In other words, it's an ideal that really requires a lot of attention and time devoted to it.
Man, you got me thinking with that.
Well, and yeah, the way he gets into it, well, I'll share with you a small part of that, just so we don't get too far off of, but give me just a second.
Oh, you're good.
He's very long-winded like I am, I must admit. Okay, so scratch all that. In Derek's teachings, he talks about before these kind of constructs that we see manifest in the universe, there was a great force of energy with the power to command both action and contemplation. And he calls this force of energy Or he says that this force of energy was conductive with human spirituality, human philosophy, and most importantly, our behavior, human behavior. A force strong enough that when aligned can transfer, resist, attract, absorb, convert, and reflect to produce a psychological, philosophical, and or a physical reality based on its relationships with objects, environments, and entities. A force of energy, wow. Theologians, philosophers, and scientists agree that exists today in various incarnations of reality through the notions and concepts of human nature. And these are all as they relate to life force energy. He says, today we see this energy manifested and employed in virtually every aspect of our lives. And like other forms of energy, such as potential, kinetic, and life force, it adapts to the new constructs and dynamics for this ancient force of energy is fear. And it knows no boundary or border, which is true. Doesn't make it good, though, right? And he goes on to say, fear may not be as dispassionate and detached. Behavior and conduct and habit and practice, ritual and tradition are greatly influenced, if not directly governed by a fear of something. He's going real deep on this, but he really believes in his teachings that if the first sensation, and he's kind of asking the question here, old Master Thompson's a philosopher at heart, right? He's a good philosopher because he asks lots of questions. He's contemplating here, if the first sensation that all living things experienced was fear, and that was through either the process of evolution and consciousness, it became powerful enough, though, to manifest into an autonomous reality, able to facilitate and or govern the instincts of survival and continuation. Then the connection between human nature and life force energy is firm, and between that connection, he believes is fear. And he talks about, and we could do a whole show about this, really. It would be a good one. But he talks about that fear has always been there, basically. We were talking about how love and connection are literal creative forces of the universe, of all of creation, like it underlies every aspect of creation. He believes that within there, and maybe to balance this stuff out, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? It's fear. Yeah. But we got to be careful to confuse caution and fear, because a knight is cautious, but a knight should never be fearful, you know. At least not allowing fear to control.
Right, which is, I think, the biggest issue with fear is when fear spreads like it does through the system. I mean, it does take hold. It directs our motives, our actions. It's the thing that perpetuates these masks. Mm-hmm. The more the fear latches onto us, the more we let it seep into our bones, the harder it is to act.
Yeah. It's a poison that paralyzes, man. It does. It's like getting bit by a snake that paralyzes you and you're stuck and you can't move. But here comes the light at the end of the tunnel, because although old Teal Swan gave us all this heavy stuff, she did put a doorway to connection, didn't she? She teaches us how to walk through that, how to heal. And she says we should heal through connection, right?
Yeah. Which is the truth. It's one of those things where we have to untrain our nervous systems, untrain our bodies to connection. And this doesn't mean just having a few people that you have those surface level connections. It means developing those deep, true connections where you can be yourself, where you can be vulnerable, where you can be seen.
So this gets us into parts work. This is where the connection begins. This is what she tells us, that we got to start doing the parts work, right?
Yeah.
This is where all things come together.
Yeah. I mean, it's working with the inner child and these disowned versions of ourselves that we have to start creating connection with, communication with, figuring out what needs they have. Because often the biggest issue between the protector part and the part that's hidden away is a miscommunication on needs.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Are you saying that we should not exile these parts of us?
Never.
We're not here to
Nope, just like you say, we got to integrate them.
Because they are us. They are part of us. They're not us in totality, but they are a part of us. They help make us whole. And the reason we feel this way and feel a lot of this is because we're not whole. We are separated and shattered. And you know, I don't. You know, I always say I hate the word broken and I don't like the word shattered, but we are segmented. We're kind of segmented away from parts of us, and we gotta We got to bring them back home. We got to bring them into the fold, right?
Yeah. And in one of
Even
her other
though
books, The
a lot of
Connection Process,
traditions,
it talks about these
ancient
parts.
and
The way
new,
the way these parts form is it's these little traumatic moments where our mind, our psychology splits. And it's how we had to cope. So
yeah,
for me, it was when I had to stand up to my sister, and then my dad's like, "No, don't do that. Take the high road. It's not worth it." And my mind fractured where it was like, "All right, I need to take the high road. I cannot express anger or stand my ground for my belongings." And it was this divided my psyche.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We need to reconcile with these parts of ourselves. These parts are hurting just as much as we are. We need to sit with them. We need to integrate them. We need to reconcile. We need to offer forgiveness and accept forgiveness from our shadow parts, because our shadows long to be whole with us too. They want to belong to us just as much as we want to belong to everything else and everyone else, right? We got to remember this. We got to remember this. And I always say we build bridges and not walls here, right? And one of those things is finding authenticity. And that is the bridge to real bonding, because loneliness cannot be cured with magic pills, with affirmations alone, with visualizations, with voodoo dolls, none of that stuff. That stuff may help you in some way or the other, perhaps, but none of them are magic pills. And it can't be cured through performance or the masks or forcing ourselves to fit in, right? So people will like us.
Yeah. I mean, I truly believe authenticity is the highest vibration.
Mm-hmm.
When we can be authentic, we become magnetic. When we can
Yeah.
learn to truly flow in the world as ourselves, there is nothing more powerful.
Yeah, yeah. You resonate with that which is yours. What you're putting out there, man, comes back, right? We
Yep.
all kind of believe this in one way or the other. So yeah, we got to be authentic.
Another
Because
important.
really, the only true connection you'll find is with another authentic person on that
Yeah.
level. Otherwise, it's just kind of meh, just kind of whatever.
Yep. Well, and it's when we can only meet people as deeply as they met themselves. But the more you get into this world of healing, the more you create these connections with people at your level, the more you start to cultivate these deeper relationships, these communicative relationships. And it doesn't mean that the other type of relationships in your life are going to the wayside. One of the most important things you can do is start learning to express your needs or going to where repair needs to happen.
Yes.
A lot of the times we have things hidden in the shadow because we had a rupture in a relationship and we haven't reached out to make amends or make peace with the situation.
Yes, understand that it's important. Wisdom demands. I'll say that again, Michael. Wisdom demands that we ask. Wisdom demands that we ask for these moments to repair, right?
Yeah.
Hey, man, I feel like you've been kind of distant from me. Can we talk about that? Or we talk about reassurance all the time on the show, When you need reassurance, you need to let me know. I'm not going to invade your mind and try to read it. And when harm occurs between us and relationships, and it will, I don't care how long you've been together and how perfect you think your relationship is, harm will
Throw it
happen.
in for like 10 minutes more, maybe.
Harm will happen, and now healing comes through that repair, not retreat. Repair, not retreat. Can we say things like, can we try again? Can we try this again? Maybe not right now, but can we try this conversation again later? Or I really want to understand where you're coming from. So can you repeat that and maybe say it in a different way? Like if you came to me, let's say if you gave me a show idea and I was like, that's not, I ain't doing that. That's dumb. Right?
Yeah.
And that hurts you. And now you need to talk to me about it, and now there's a rupture. And you would say to me, hey, I really need to talk to you about your reaction to that ideal I had. And if we were working through it and we just weren't connecting, then I would need to say to you, hey, listen, I really want to understand where you're coming from. This obviously means a lot to you, right?
Yeah.
I want to understand you. Can you please help me understand you? Maybe can you say this in a different way? Because I'm having trouble connecting to you.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that makes this connection so great. Again, those deeper levels, we're able to ask for that clarification.
Yeah.
We're able to speak our minds and our needs.
Yes.
Which is vital.
So as we come to the end of the show, I have some closing thoughts for you before you ride us off into the sunset.
Sounds good.
So again, loneliness is not a flaw. Like our emotions, it's a signal, if anything. If you look at it as something trying to get your attention, or a lesson, or a teacher, but really, most time, at least for me, it feels more like a message, like, hey, I need your attention for a second, right? That somewhere within us, a part of us has fallen out of connection with the whole, with the rest of us, right? And we talked about these 3 pillars that Teal Swan identified: separation, shame, and fear. But loneliness does not mean we're broken. And for us at Ashla, it is the call. It is a call of the exiled self, if you will, tapping us on the shoulder saying, I want to come back and I want you with me. You know, I want to be welcomed. And every step toward that, every step toward connection with another or with yourself is one small step out of that illusion. Because isolation doesn't have to be real. You know, we're not talking about what's his name with the volleyball, Wilson, right?
Yeah, right.
That was isolation. That's actual isolation. My dude had it bad. But the kind of isolation we're talking about today in regards to loneliness is that this is us kind of just being disconnected, not literally being isolated. So the axiom, approach understanding with light and darkness will never gain purchase. Because when we learn to approach this state of being with truth, with love, with connection, with light, instead of running from it or trying to bury it down, the more we do that, the less it can no longer dominate us. Our shadows they don't encompass us. We're now in the light. This week, I want you guys to choose one small act of reconnection if you are going through this. And even if you're not going through this, it's good to practice, right?
Yeah.
So to talk to yourself, and this may feel silly, but just go with me here. Place your hand over your heart and speak out loud. I will not abandon you again. You are safe with me, right? And if you need to whisper it because you're nervous, then go ahead. I don't care. But just do it. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to scream it from the rooftops unless you do. If you do, more power to you, brother and sister. Another thing I want you to try and do today, if you are feeling kind of disconnected from people, I want you to send a message to someone you care about. Just one message, and don't make it all weird. It's just a really simple thing. Hey, man, I was thinking about you. I'm really grateful for you. I do this to Michael all the time, and Michael does this for me all the time. I make sure that before I ever ask him for anything, because him and I, we need stuff from each other to make this thing work, just this thing, let alone all the other 100 things that we have going on together, right? Yep. But before I ask him, hey, bro, where's the show notes for today? I always make sure, hey, man, I was thinking about you. I hope you're having a great day or a great week or a great whatever. I really appreciate all you do for us. And then...
every time.
And then a lot of times I'll wait for him to respond. And then I'll say, hey, by the way, when you get a chance, I didn't see the show notes, right? Or something. But send a message to someone you care about. Just a little quick thing. Hey, man, you crossed my mind today. Or, hey, man, I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing great. Another one I want you to try and do is connect with creation. I want you to spend at least 5 minutes in silence, outside if you can, and breathe. Just breathe with nature. Breathe with the world. Breathe with the birds. It could be night, it could be day, doesn't matter. Whatever suits you. And of course, I know Michael's going to give you journaling prompts, but I have to sneak one in here because you know how much I love doing that.
Of course.
I want you to journal on this prompt. This is my call of action to you. Which part of me feels most alone? And what does it need from me now? And contemplate on that, stew on that, write about that. Don't judge it, just write about it. And I'll just say, if you're feeling lonely, you're not failing in anything, you're fine. But what you're doing is you're reaffirming that truth that we were made and built for connection. That's all you're doing. You're not a mistake. You're not too much. You're not too extra, as my daughters say. You're not too little. You're just a being learning how to return to itself. So as you heal, just remember you become a living reminder for others. And that's what I'm going to leave you with today.
That's some sagely wisdom right there.
Are you trying to get me to grow that nasty beard I had? The one that was all like...
I believe in you. For our affirmations today, every part of me deserves to be seen, heard, and welcomed back home. There is nothing wrong with me. My emotions are messengers, not flaws. Connection becomes easier when I allow myself to be authentic. I am no longer abandoning the parts of myself that were once left alone. Kind of mirrored some of what you had right there.
That's okay.
It's important. It's so important.
It is.
As I choose connection over fear, loneliness loses its power. For our journaling prompts today, what part of me feels the most alone right now? And what does this part need from me?
For the record, I did not read that far into the notes. So, yeah. Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength. That's all it is.
Synchronicity.
That means you definitely have to do it.
You got to do it twice now.
Then write, what do I believe is wrong with me? And where did this belief come from? Almost always you'll find it from something external of your life. It's that hidden voice within you that screams when you go out of your comfort zone. What fear is keeping me from letting myself to be fully seen in relationships? What is it that you're shoving down or you don't want anyone to know about you? Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you gained a little bit of wisdom when it comes to loneliness, and definitely check out this book, The Anatomy of Loneliness by Teal Swan. It is a must read. Also, please check out our website, newashla.com, and our YouTube channel, Spotify. We're everywhere. TikTok, Instagram. Give us some comments. Let us know what you want to hear about. With love and gratitude, Lucian.
Ad Lucian.